Alright girls, so welcome to the Elise Analysis that's going to help you with your romantic composer assignment. And we've chosen Beethoven. Now Beethoven happens to live right at the end of the romantic period, and at the beginning of the romantic period, and at the end of the classical period that comes before then. So they kind of pick his death date more or less as roughly the start of the romantic period because the music that he composed kind of bridged the gap between the two different periods. And this piece of music that we've got is called Elise. Miss, can I get you to play maybe just the beginning part up until that little opening bit? As soon as you hear this melody, you're probably going to recognise it. Fantastic. So we're just going to do a very short analysis on a little part of this piece of music, but understand that it actually goes for quite a bit longer and it's got a few other sections. But for your assignment, we're going to give you some really concrete ideas on what to talk about. So let's start analysing a few things. And you can do this for your assignment. You can either take little screenshots, as I explained in the previous video, or you can even do this. Let's begin with the first one. There's an Italian word here called poco molto. Now, Italian terms, you find them in music all the time, and personally, I tend to forget what most of them mean, because you only ever see them every now and then. So, Miss, do you happen to know what the meaning is?
I do.
Can you tell me?
I'm good with my Italian terms.
Fantastic.
Poco means a little.
Yes.
And moto means movement. So it just means a little movement. And you kind of get that idea with that little figure. Da, 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 da. So it's a little movement happening through the piece all the time.
It's not fast movement.
No,
it's not really slow movement.
Yeah,
it's
but it's moving. It's moving along. Yeah.
So because Miss knows her terms, she can just give the explanation. And when we were kids learning music, you probably had a music dictionary that had all the terms. Today we can look at Google. So let's say that I don't know what the term is. I can launch Google Chrome and I can simply say, what does poco
Let's see if I'm right.
molto mean? And poco molto means that the tempo stays steady throughout, is not to be played. Poco molto with movement, exactly what Miss said.
Poco does mean a little. So,
and poco means a little, There are even music dictionaries online that you can go through and have a look at the words individually, and we highly suggest you do that. So, we just spent about 2 or 3 minutes explaining what poco molto means. If we were going to do this in our assignment, we've only got a 5-minute time limit. So this might be something that we briefly explain, but you can see how you only need a few points to talk about and you'll easily fill up your allocation. So that's the first thing I wanted to talk about. The second one is this little thing over here. So Beethoven, when he wrote this piece of music, wanted people to play it at a particular volume. He doesn't want you to play it too loud. He wants you to play it at a PP level. And what does PP mean, Miss?
PP means...
Not go to the toilet.
No. It means pianissimo.
Pianissimo. And what does pianissimo mean?
Which is very soft.
Which is very soft.
Yes, so I have to start very soft.
Yeah. So can you play that at the beginning and play it very loud to contrast it? So this is what not to do.
So very loud.
Yeah, hammer it out. Alright. And that's not what Beethoven wants. Beethoven wants nice and soft. Fantastic. So, another thing you can talk about are the dynamics, and if you look throughout the score, you'll probably see that there is various sections throughout where there might be a dynamic indicator, but it depends on the composer. The next thing I wanted to mention, Miss, is this little thing over here. So there's a ped mark. There's actually a couple of markings.
Yes.
Let's see if we can squish that up here. This one says ped.
Yes.
And the idea is, girls, you're probably going to find a whole heap of things that you don't know what they mean. The task is find out what they mean, research it, look it up. What does ped mean, Miss?
Well, ped is short for the word pedal. So it just means to play the sustaining pedal, which is the pedal on the right, and then the little asterisk that follows, or whatever that little shape you might want to call that, just means to release the pedal. So pedal down, pedal up, pedal down, pedal up. Yeah.
So it's so that the notes don't sustain into the next bar.
Exactly, because it'll mix up different harmonies, because we're moving into different harmonies, different chords, and you don't want that to happen, so you break the pedaling.
Okay, so we've already spoken about 3 different things. Each one has taken us about a minute or 2 to explain. So we've already done more than our assignment needs.
And we're at bar 2.
And we're only at bar 2. We haven't even looked at the rest of the piece of music. However, the level of detail that we've gone into is not that difficult to come by.
Not really.
Okay?
Yeah.
So this is where we expect everyone to be able to get. But if you want to get the really high grades for your musical analysis, you need to dig a little bit deeper. And here are some of the examples of digging deeper. Let's talk about this 3/8 time signature.
Yeah.
So over here, whoops, we've got this little thing at the beginning here. And at an entry level, you might say, okay, 3/8 means that you're going to have 3 quaver beats per bar, or the equivalent of 3 quaver beats. And that's a fairly, again, a fairly entry-level observation. But one of the things that might give us a bit more detail is, well, how come there are 6 semi-quavers in there? So, Miss, would you be able to explain why there's 6 notes in here, but you're only meant to have 3 quavers? What does that mean?
Well, a quaver, I guess, essentially you might say is worth half a beat if you're comparing it to a crotchet. And we need 2 semi-quavers then to fit into that 1 quaver, so they're worth a quarter of a beat.
Yeah, so a quarter plus a quarter equals a half. And how many halves are we allowed to have in the bar?
We actually have 3 half notes in this bar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So why do we have 6?
Because 6 quarters make 3 halves.
3 halves. So
That's right.
quarter plus a quarter, or that semi-quaver and that semi-quaver, that's 1 half.
Yeah.
And then that one plus that one is 2 halves, and then that one plus that one is 3 halves.
That's right.
And so then we're all good. So, Miss, why do we only have a couple of notes here?
Oh, we only have a couple of notes in that first bar. That's a very special bar. That's something that's called an anacrusis.
Mm-hmm.
And an anacrusis is also referred to as a little upbeat. So we don't want to start on 1, 2, 3. We want to start on 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So we're missing 2 beats though.
Yeah. And so what happens with the 2 beats?
Well, if you were to go to the last bar of this piece of music...
And I hope we're right with this, Miss, because we haven't checked this.
You should be right. There should be 2 beats in the last bar because we can't have an unbalanced. And there's a quaver
there,
followed
quaver
by
there.
a quaver.
Yeah.
Yes,
So one of the rules in this type of music is that if you have an anacrusis, which means at the beginning of the music you're not using all the bars, then the last bar has to catch them all up. So here we've got 1, 2, and then right back to the beginning, we've got 3.
It's a special word called anacrusis.
Yeah. So, to give you a bit of contrast, girls, talking about the 3/8 time signature is like an entry level, but all of a sudden talking about the groupings and the anacrusis, that puts you up into the next bracket of marks.
Yeah. So I don't know if you can scroll through a little bit further to those demi-semi-quavers as well.
Ooh, okay.
If you want to touch on those just quickly.
Sure, just over here. So, just by contrast, a quaver has 1 flag or 1 beam, like these ones here, so they're quavers. Semi-quavers have 2 flags or 2 beams.
That's right.
So what are these thingos here?
They're called demi-semi-quavers, and they
Demi-semi-quavers.
have 3 beams.
Right.
So we need 4 of them for every 1 quaver.
Right. And effectively, you're halving everything every time, aren't you?
Every time you're halving everything, but you're getting into smaller and smaller fractions, so it becomes very mathematical.
Yeah.
And they're quite rare. You don't meet them very often.
That's true.
But Beethoven has used them. So again, the extremes of rhythm and note values.
Yeah.
From demi-semi-quavers right through to quavers. Probably a crotchet or 2 in there somewhere, I would imagine.
Yeah. Well, there's one right there.
So there you go.
So a crotchet's worth 1, and then a quaver, so like this note here, is worth a half, and it's got 1 flag. So then the notes that have got 2 flags or 2 beams are worth a quarter. And then if you halve a quarter for the ones that have got 3, they are worth an eighth of a beat.
Yes.
So in 1 count, you actually fit 8 notes.
Yeah.
Right? So again, that gives us a high level of musical analysis. But let's take it even further. So this is where we're talking about the really top analysis here. Miss, would you mind playing this little fragment here, that little bit there? Yeah? Alright, so what Miss has played there is this little section here. Can you play that again, Miss, for me? Alright, so what Miss has played is E, D sharp, E, D sharp, E, B, D natural. Even explaining what a sharp and a natural is another part of the musical analysis.
Exactly.
So E, D sharp, E, D sharp, E, B, D, C, A. Now this is the main theme
Yes.
or the main motif.
A little motif, I think, because it's quite short, so I think we'd call it a motif.
A motif, yeah. And a motif is an idea. It's a musical idea. Now what Beethoven does, he plays it there, and if we look a little bit further ahead, look at this. He plays it there again.
Yeah.
All right, so the same motif is actually repeated. Now here's another example of an analysis. He's got another little figure, and I might just change colour here, miss. Oops,
Yeah.
that's not what I want to do.
Let's
Let's get another line. Let's look at this little section here.
Yeah.
Okay, can you play these notes here, C, E, and A, but stop at the B, yeah? So E, C, E, A. If you rearrange these notes, miss, and go A, C, E, alright? Now, if you have an understanding of triads, or if you research it, what's actually happened is that Beethoven is doing an A minor chord. And we know this by looking at the notes that are played there. But importantly, if you look at the way the notes are going, it kind of starts low, goes to the middle, goes up, and then this one goes up even higher, and it does the same idea over here. Except that the notes have changed. So this time he's got E, G sharp, and B. Can you play those notes, miss? E, G sharp, and B actually form the triad of the chord E major before we get onto this little section here again. Yeah. And for further analysis, you could even have a look further on the score, because what Beethoven does is that this little thing that we had originally over here comes back, whoops, not that far away, comes back over here, and it comes back over here. So a full score analysis, and you'll actually find, and in fact you'll find these little ideas back over here again. Yeah.
And then he's got some repeat sections as well.
He's got some repeated sections.
That's why you hear it so often, because he's repeating those opening 8 bars on an there, and then the next 8 or 16 probably.
So for your score analysis, choose a piece of music where you can go through and listen to and analyse all the various things. Now we've spoken about, let's see, we spoke about the time signature, we spoke about dynamics, we spoke about the tempo.
Yeah, I think that's to do with tempo. Yeah.
We spoke about the groupings of the notes and semiquavers and quavers and so on. We spoke about the theme, we spoke about the chords. So we've spoken already about 6 things, and we've been talking for what, 10 minutes or something? 10 minutes, yeah. So we've done like double what your assignment expects. Yeah. But the key highlight here is that the more in-depth you go, like the understanding the green theme and the red chords is higher level than just saying it uses an E note there and a D sharp note there. There's a difference between the level of expectation, and the more analysis you do, the higher it is. Your task in this is to go through and pick like the top 3 or 4 or 5 points of analysis that you want to bring to your presentation so that you show the best understanding that you can show. Is there anything else, Miss, that we need to cover?
No, I don't think so. I was thinking there are 3 big sections in this piece as well, and we've only touched on the beginning of one little section. Yeah. So if you were talking about structure, you might mention that there are other main sections, but maybe just devote most of your analysis to the opening section, would you say so? Yeah,
well, it just depends on which ones, and if you want to focus on the concept of music structure as one of the main things,
then I guess you
might
explore the different sections.
And what you'll find, girls, is that you, in your analysis, covering all 6 of concepts of music in detail in 5 minutes is too much. So what you might find is that you pick a focus area where you really flesh it out in detail.
Yeah, maybe mention the others, but flesh out in detail one or 2 concepts.
Yeah. And given, girls, that this music analysis is the part that gives you the marks in your task, if you need to cut down on something, cut down on your biographical information. So pick a few key points for your biographical information, give yourself more time to the musical analysis. Excellent. Again, girls, if you've got any questions, please come and see Miss or myself, and we'll be glad to help. To get started, you need to have chosen your composer, or for us to have given you composer, and you need to have chosen your piece of music and found a recording and gotten the score. So they're probably the 4 steps. Your composer, the piece of music that you're going to use, get the score, get the recording, so that you can start this process.
Sounds good.
Thank you, girls. Good luck with this.
Good luck.